A family of 4 has tragically died in a house fire, but the details of this case are really strange. Around 4 a.m. yesterday morning, a neighbor of the Prusner family woke up to see a glow coming through his window. He said he grabbed a cigarette and a coffee, and then noticed the house next door was on fire. He reportedly tried to get inside and help, but even Ferguson police had to back off several times because of the intensity. As we know, the victims here are Bertie Prusner, her 9-year-old twins Ellie and Ivy, her 6-year-old Jackson, and 2-year-old Millie. This is a Facebook post Bertie made the night before they died, reading, quote, "Making today one of those live each day like it's your last kind of days. Breakfast, reptile shows, soccer game, and living room camp out on the agenda, plus what other shenanigans bring us joy. Happy Sunday, thank God the sun is shining." Here is a second post, quote, "Us against the world, I'm so blessed to be their mama. They have a heart for the Lord and have overcome so much more in their little lives than they should have had to face." And finally, there is a third post, again all written the night before they died. This one reads, quote, "All my kids peacefully sleeping in my bed, curled up together, knowing they are loved so fiercely that I'd do absolutely anything for them. This is my favorite moment." So what to make of this, we don't know, but it's clear that all 5 of them were in the mother's bedroom when the fire happened, and that neighbors and police have found it really strange that seemingly no one in that house was waking up. Today, many people are coming forward to describe Bertie as a treasure and a wonderful teacher who loved her children and her family. Social media comments insinuate that there may have been an ongoing divorce and custody battle, but this hasn't been confirmed by police. Right now, police are describing the case as suspicious, and they won't know how the fire started until further investigation. More information has come out on the horrific attack of Adam Simji and Michaela Paulus. Last August, Adam and Michaela were enjoying a last-minute road trip through Alabama before starting classes at Central Florida. They were driving through the Talladega National Forest looking for waterfalls when a young woman flagged them down on the side of the road and asked for help. As we now know, 21-year-old Yasmin Hilder would tell the couple that her car was broken down an eighth of a mile away. So the students followed her to her car and tried to use jumper cables to get it started. Michaela even called her dad for advice, who had years of experience as a mechanic. At this point, reportedly out of nowhere, Yasmin pulled a gun and told the couple to, quote, "empty out their pockets and walk further into the woods." Adam responded by saying that everything they had was in their van and she could have it. He pulled out his own gun, at which point Yasmin asked if he was serious and opened fire. As gunfire erupted, we know Adam suffered a single fatal shot to the abdomen. Michaela could have been killed next, but somehow she managed to find her phone, call 911, use her shirt to make a tourniquet for her boyfriend's wound, and attempt to perform CPR. 30 minutes later, police finally arrived at the scene, where they were confronted by a 5-year-old boy with a loaded pistol. As it turns out, Yasmin, her accomplice, and said son were all living off-grid in what's being described as a base camp about a half-mile from the scene. Both women were arrested, and thankfully, the young boy dropped the weapon and was placed into state custody. This week, Yasmin pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, robbery, and kidnapping, and was subsequently sentenced to 35 years. Her car had actually been broken down there for months, and while she did intend to rob them, she says it was never supposed to turn out the way it did. Adam is described as being there for anyone and everyone, whether it was helping someone on the side of the road or being there for the people he loved when they needed him most. The GoFundMe for his service has since been closed, but all future donations will go towards Michaela's counseling. Rachel Del Tondo's former student has been named the prime suspect in her case. If you don't know, in 2018, Rachel was a suspended teacher in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. On May 13th, she went out for ice cream with a friend, not knowing someone was following her. When Rachel was dropped off at her parents around 10:45, she was shot 10 times right there in the driveway. But to understand what happened there that night, we have to go back to an incident 2 years before. The reason her millionaire fiance broke off their engagement and she was suspended from teaching. That winter, in February of 2016, police found Rachel and a 17-year-old student here in a, quote, steamed up parked car just before 2 a.m. Rachel told the responding officer that the high school football star Sheldon Jeter had just needed to talk. She said her fiance would be angry if he found out, so the officer agreed not to file a report or press any charges. About a year later, in May of 2017, the police chief decided to, quote, file that report in case someone got wind of it. And then suddenly in October, it was leaked to Rachel's boss and the media, all sent in an anonymous email conveniently just days after her fiance went to the station looking for more information. With that, Rachel was placed on paid suspension pending an investigation by the Department of Education. And within 2 months of said suspension, she got into a serious relationship with Sheldon's older brother, Bolton, the brother of the student she was seen with in that car. So, on the night Rachel was killed, we now know she actually got ice cream with Sheldon and Bolton's third brother. This seemingly did not go over well with Sheldon. You can see he texted his brother just 30 minutes before the murder, insinuating he was mad he wasn't invited. So, for the past 5 years, police have reportedly been building circumstantial evidence against Sheldon. They have GPS data, surveillance footage, and his history of stalking, but they cannot place her on Rachel's driveway that night. As of today, Sheldon is the only suspect in Rachel's case, and he's actually already serving life for the murder of his roommate in 2020. He shot Tyreek 7 times, again after going out for ice cream. Natalie Martin has tragically been found murdered on her senior trip to Myrtle Beach. Natalie just graduated in Ohio, and this past week she and a group of friends were on vacation celebrating. This included her ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old Blake Linkus. Again, tragically, on Wednesday, police received a call reporting a deceased woman at a hotel on Mason Drive. There, they found the victim to be 18-year-old Natalie. Police, quote, detected suspicious circumstances and then determined that she had been strangled the night before. From here, investigators collected evidence at the scene along with witness statements. This led to Blake's arrest, with police saying, quote, Blake Linkus did with malice aforethought cause the death of Natalie Martin. The defendant did so by manually strangling the victim. According to a close friend of Natalie's, she and Blake had been a couple for several years up until recently, but the two had reportedly remained friends. So while a motive remains unknown, we know that Blake is being held without bail at a detention center in South Carolina. According to the superintendent from their high school, this was not a school-sanctioned event. It is, quote, a common destination for graduating students in the area. Natalie is described as a free, pure, and wild spirit with a contagious laugh who had a personality out of this world that could bring anyone out of their darkest days. If you can or want to help, the link to her GoFundMe will be in my bio. Two teenagers have just been seen in court for the horrific murder of Jack Snyder. Back in February, Jack was driving home from his girlfriend's birthday party when he saw two younger boys on the side of the road. It was freezing that night in Michigan, so out of kindness, he offered them a ride home. According to court documents, when 13-year-old DeWand and 14-year-old Justice entered the car, they demanded Jack pull over and remove the keys from the ignition. There was, quote, a struggle for the keys, and then Justice aimed a gun he had stolen from his mother. As we now know, Jack was fatally shot twice. The boys tragically left him to die in the street and didn't even bother taking his car. About a week later, in late February, tips submitted by the community led to the arrest of 14-year-old Justice Chimney. And then the following day, 13-year-old DeWand Estes walked himself into the police station with a parent and turned himself in. With the boys appearing in court, it's apparent that both of their defenses are trying to pin the case on the other. We do know someone asked DeWand over Snapchat that night to steal a vehicle for a few $100s. So today, both boys are being tried as adults in connection to Jack's murder. And the court is reportedly being asked to designate 13-year-old DeWand, so in the case he is found guilty, there can be a blended sentence. And as for Jack, he never got to graduate high school or continue playing the sport that he loved. If you would like to donate to the family, the link will be in my bio.
The man behind me is the real-life human Dracula. His name is Tsutomu Miyazaki. He was born with a deformity that fused his wrists with his hands, so he was bullied a ton growing up. Then one day, later on in adulthood in 1988, something snapped in him. He started abducting little children, specifically little girls, and engaging in necrophilia. He would strangle his victims to death and then engage with their corpse. He would even go as far as removing some of their body parts like their hands and feet and even their teeth. One way that made him also very similar to Jeffrey Dahmer, he would pose these bodies in different ways and photograph them. On one of his last instances before he got caught, he drank the blood of a little girl. And then right after that, he ate her hand. One day he was at the playground trying to take pictures of more little kids, and the father intervened and stopped him. So Mr. Dracula behind me fled on foot, naked, and was caught by the cops later on. That's when they discovered his disturbing collection of photos and body parts inside of his apartment. However, he blamed it on his alter ego named the Rat Man. They were not playing any games with this guy, they immediately sentenced him to death. The government hung him on June 17th of 2008. Let me know what you guys think about the Rat Man or Dracula in the comment section below. And as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
This is what we know about the awful case of 16-year-old Shelby Binney. Shelby was a cheerleader at Bixby High School, and on Thursday night, her family was on their way home with her dad behind the wheel. He had reportedly been drinking, and according to her mom, they were also having a heated argument up in the front seats. At 70 miles per hour, he tried to pass another vehicle in a no-passing zone, and their SUV flipped. As we know, Shelby was tragically ejected from her family's vehicle on impact. A bystander immediately ran over to the scene, but there aren't even words for what happened next. Shelby's father was reportedly standing disoriented just outside of the crashed car, and when asked if anyone was hurt, he ran away. He left his 16-year-old daughter there to die on the pavement. Now, according to police, they were able to determine that Elliot had fled to a local family-owned business, and it was there that he got access to another car. They were able to electronically track that vehicle, and within 12 hours, they found him behind the wheel in a town about an hour away. It was obviously too late to give him a DUI test, but he was taken into custody. With Elliot's arrest, we know that while he tried to tell police he skidded on an oil spot, he's also admitted to taking a few swigs of the vodka bottle that was found in the front seat. Today, Elliot is charged with first-degree manslaughter, but he has already posted his $100,000 bail. And as for Shelby's mom and her siblings, again, unfortunately, we don't know how they're doing now. Shelby is described as a bright light with a heart of gold and the best teammate you could ask for. If you would like to support her family during this time, the link will be in my bio.
However, coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair No one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
After 5+ years, there are finally updates in the case of Carly Gousset. If you know the case, you know the 16-year-old vanished from her family's home in Chalfant Valley, California. She was last seen walking from her rural neighborhood to Highway 6, but up until now, we've really had no idea what could have happened. Today, police are searching for clues in a mining town over 100 miles away, where they, quote, have seized the vehicle that may have picked Carly up from the highway. It's alleging someone is responsible for her disappearance, and to understand who, we have to go back to that Friday night. Around 7 p.m. on October 12th, Carly was untruthful to her family about attending the high school football game. She went to a hangout with her boyfriend Donald instead, and then around 8:30 became so paranoid that she blew her cover. She called her stepmom in a panic, begging to be picked up from Highland Park, about 15 minutes away. Now with that, Melissa immediately left their family's home and headed to town. But by the time she arrived, her daughter had literally run a mile from the pickup spot and her boyfriend. She was found sprinting down that dark road with just her flashlight, and so she was taken home to calm down. After getting back around 10 p.m., Carly's family says that she, quote, had dinner, painted her toenails, colored, and read the Bible. But she was reportedly still acting out of it, so Melissa started taking audio recordings of her behavior to teach her a lesson the following day. Audio recordings where she clearly made some concerning statements. Now from here, Melissa's story has actually changed, but today she maintains she last saw her daughter in her bed around 5:45 a.m., and that it was around 7 when she found her missing, along with their front door slightly open and a single footprint in the snow. As we know, between 7:30 and 9:30 that morning, Melissa and Carly's father were out seen searching for her in their respective vehicles. After 2 hours with no luck, they informed her birth mom that she was gone, and then they contacted police. And police immediately found 3 credible witnesses who saw Carly walking that morning from Chalfant Valley Estates up to Highway 6. Now, while these sightings were in line with Carly's scent trail and the timeline provided by her parents, everyone searched and searched but found nothing. An 18-year-old has been arrested for what she took that night, along with her family for some pretty terrible domestic violence, but no leads directly associated with her case, or at least up until now. As I mentioned, police are currently searching through the town of Tonopah, Nevada, which is actually one of the first exits off Highway 6 where Carly was last seen. They've received a tip from someone there making amends in a recovery program, and reportedly this person, quote, saw an incident with her in town and can't live with knowing what happened. Police haven't revealed details about the incident, but they have, quote, been provided with the make, model, and location of the car that brought Carly into the area. Again, they've seized it, and now they're waiting on lab results. So with that, I have to add I found one thing that might add context to this tip. About a year ago, Melissa gave an interview where she said police were following up on a lead where Carly was hit by a car out of town. Reportedly, police found a vehicle with damage to the front end and a person of interest. So if these 2 leads are connected, it could be an avenue where the investigation is going, following the theory Carly was picked up from the highway. Of course, she remains missing, and the most prominent theories remain that she was either abducted, wandered off and succumbed to the elements, or never made it out of her family's house. Carly is described as being 5'7", 110 pounds, with blonde-brown hair and blue eyes. Anyone with information is asked to contact the number above. A 23-year-old has been legally euthanized after struggles with her mental health, and now another young woman is next. This is Shanti DeCourt, and with both the support of her doctors and her parents, she has gone through with ending her life. She was 16 and on a school trip when she survived the Brussels airport bombing, but after that, she, quote, was never the same. Now, according to Shanti's parents, she found it impossible to enjoy life after the attack, to the point where she was scared of balloons bursting and was suffering panic attacks from fireworks. This is what reportedly led them to support her decision, with everyone in her life telling her that her disease was incurable. Doctors then, quote, logically granted her request given her state of suffering, and on May 7th, the procedure was performed. And to be specific, this is reportedly a process where you're given a sedative and then a drug that stops your heart. It's actually legal in 5 countries across Europe, and again, now this young woman is following Shanti's lead. 28-year-old Zaraya Beek is from another small town in Germany, and like Shanti, she is struggling with her mental health. In her case, she lives with her boyfriend and her 2 cats, but has been dealing with depression and multiple personality disorder for years. Her doctors have also told her that they have no further treatment options, to which she has said, quote, I have always been clear that if I can't get better, I won't do this anymore. She's reportedly scheduled to be euthanized next month on the couch of she and her boyfriend's home. Now, what we know is that talk of Zaraya's case is leading to controversy on whether or not this should be legal. There is a review panel to determine if an applicant is eligible, and it's then reportedly their job to examine the death and declare that it was done lawfully. But one former member on that panel has said, quote, I entered the review committee in 2005, and I was there until 2014. In those years, I saw euthanasia practice evolve from death being a last resort option to being a default option. So I resigned. He went on to say that this is especially prevalent in young adults with psychological issues, and that doctors are now more easily giving up on their patients. In 2023, there were hundreds euthanized in Germany, with one of them being Shanti. And while one neurologist did make complaints about the decision being made prematurely, the case was then closed after it was found that no violations were made. And as for Zaraya, she's already gotten off of social media ahead of her procedure. She says that things will go something like this. Quote, "The doctor really takes her time. It's not that they walk in and say, 'Lay down, please.' Most of the time, it's first a cup of coffee to settle the nerves and create a soft atmosphere. Then she asks if I am ready. I will take my place on the couch. She will once again ask if I am sure, and she will start up the procedure and wish me a good journey. Or in my case, a nice nap, because I hate if people say, 'safe journey.' I'm not going anywhere." Suitcase killer Heather Mack has officially pleaded guilty to her mother's murder. If you know the case, you know the heiress was 18 and pregnant when she killed her mom on their vacation to Bali. She served 7 years for the crime, but now she's back in Chicago facing charges that she planned it there with her boyfriend. We now know that in 2014, Heather's socialite mother had forbidden her from dating Tommy Schaefer. She reportedly even moved Heather to Gold Coast to steer her in the right direction, but that didn't stop her from getting pregnant with his child. Instead of being upset with her daughter, Sheila then came up with Bali as a way for them to reconnect, and really to get through everything between them since her dad died. This included more than 80 calls to police for domestic violence between the mother and daughter. So in early August, Sheila booked 2 first-class seats to Bali's 5-star St. Regis. The place was beautiful and things were seemingly going well, but then about 10 days in, she couldn't find Heather anywhere. When Sheila talked to the front desk, she learned that her daughter was actually still there in the hotel, staying in a second room that she was paying for under the name Tommy Schaefer. Instead of apologizing to her mother that night, Heather planned the unthinkable. The next morning, on August 12th, Tommy showed up to the room with a glass fruit bowl. He bludgeoned Sheila to death with it, and she tragically asphyxiated on her own blood. From here, the couple shoved Sheila into a suitcase, put that in the back of a taxi, and tried to check out of the hotel. The thing is, they couldn't. They actually fled and left the suitcase behind, with the taxi driver taking it to the police station. With the discovery of Sheila's body, a pursuit began for the media's new Bonnie and Clyde. They were tracked down to a local hotel, and while they would paint Sheila as the bad guy, cell phone evidence led to a motive: a $1.5 million trust fund. In the end, Tommy and Heather narrowly escaped the firing squad, sentenced to 18 and 10 years. The judge actually cited leniency for Heather because she was pregnant. As we know, Heather served just 7 years of her sentence and has since pleaded guilty to conspiring to kill here in the US. She says she's already done her time and hopes to serve between 0 and 15 years, with her sentencing scheduled for December.
Sometimes true for stranger than fiction. The case of Richard Trenton Chase is a story which even the most depraved horror writer would struggle to create. Over the course of 4 weeks spanning across 1977 and 1978, Richard Chase took the lives of 6 innocent victims in Sacramento, California. His murders gradually progressed in violence, beginning with drive-by shootings and culminated in acts of cannibalism.